On the Road with Kelly and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last.
Thanks for joining us on this special edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. It's called Mueller's Helping Hand. And if you don't know about this, then let us give you some background.
This goes all the way back to 2008 when we were doing some work with Mueller, the metal roof and buildings company that's now our sponsor of this show. A guy named Mike Fry, who was Mueller's advertising and marketing director, asked us to help his company come up with an appropriate charitable cause, a way to give back to the communities that had supported them for so many years. Now, it's easy enough to identify a nonprofit organization and give them some money. Mission accomplished.
But Mueller wanted to do more than to simply make a donation. They wanted to combine the mission of their company with that of a deserving nonprofit that needed a boost, an organization that was already doing good work but just lacked that special thing to propel them into the next level, to a spot where they could do even more good work to help people.
Okay, so let me be forthcoming here. When they asked us to come up with an idea for them, I pondered the situation for what seems like months without coming up with an idea I thought was good enough to present to the owner of Mueller. Then, while watching an episode of that television show, Extreme Makeover Home Edition, one Sunday night, it hit me. That show would pick a family that needed some help and perform a free makeover on their home. And there was always a backstory to why the family needed and deserved this. It was then that I realized that, Mueller makes materials for metal buildings, and their buildings are the type that can be used for a number of different purposes, from businesses to homes and, just about anything in between. To accomplish their goal, I thought Mueller only needed to give away one of their buildings. That's right, give away one of their buildings to a nonprofit organization that needed, a new headquarters or food bank or whatever.
But there was one possible problem. By this time, the entire nation was in the grips of the recession that almost took down the American economy. It may not be the best time for us to ask Mike Fry to give away one of Mueller's buildings. But even though it was a risky idea, we decided we needed to share it anyway, right then and there. That was almost 16 years ago. And it was just the beginning of this incredible story.
Bob calls me at 10:30 one night and says, I've got an idea. I'm half asleep, so I've got the idea how to do it. And so that's kind of how it was born. And this was in 2008, and all of us remember the economic times of 2008. He said, Mike, I think we need to give a building away. And I said, I think that's a great idea, but you got to ask the owner.
So we made the long drive to Ballinger, Texas to present our idea to the owner of Mueller. And that was the easy part because he was convinced that the idea was a good one right away. Now we had to figure out how to get it done. But knowing Mueller's company culture like we do, we knew that would not be a problem.
I've been there for 36 years. And when I started, it was just a small little shop in Ballinger, Texas. And so to go from that one little store to, we're building number 39 now. And that will put us in 8 states, and we're about to expand into other states. Part of the reason that I've been there that long is the culture of the company. It's more of like a family. We're like all families. We get along great, and we love each other, and then we'll fuss at each other, and then we'll hug at the end of the day. And it's a culture that has been there since the day I started. It wasn't something that we had to build or anything, it's just the way it was. And so the culture of the company is very important because what that does internally, super important, but then that spills over to the public. Honestly, our customers and the people that we work with, they get that same treatment. They get that feel of, okay, these people really do care. So that's kind of how it started. And it started off as going to be a one-time deal out at Mount Pleasant, Texas. Neat little food pantry out there that was doing some really cool work with kids and doing a backpack program, sending food home with kids that didn't have anything on the weekends to eat. That's kind of how it started. And at the ceremony where they actually passed the keys, the owner turned to Bob Phillips and said, well, I guess we'll be doing this again next year. We've done food pantries, we've done medical clinics, we've done fire stations, we've done just a variety of things. And what we have found is that these organizations, all of them need help. And they're doing great work, but nearly every one of them have reached a plateau. And they want to make a move, they want to make the jump, but they just can't. They just don't have what it takes. And so to everyone, if you talk to all the previous 14 of them, say, did Mueller make a difference? Absolutely, because it helped us to move to the next level of what we were trying to do, helping people.
And now, here we are at the building site for number 15, yet another nonprofit agency that will benefit from Mueller's gift. And this one's a hard one, folks. Not the building itself, but the goal of the organization that Mueller and its army of volunteers, collectively known as the Mueller Men, are trying to help. And because all 4 of the finalists in this year's Helping Hand are worthy organizations, each doing work that is necessary and good. More than 200 organizations applied to get this building that's going up behind you over there. And then it was narrowed down to 4 finalists.
If you've ever been in a position of making a hard decision, man, get on that train.
The 4 finalists were all over the map and all different from each other, except for a couple of things. They were all doing great work helping people, and they all needed a boost to propel them to the next level so they could help even more people.
There was an organization in Sudan, Texas, that works with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's called Shelby's Bridge, and one in Damascus, Arkansas, that's primarily a food bank that has lots of other ways to help their constituents. It's called The Station at Damascus, a nonprofit in Brookshire, Texas, called Eyes on Me, that's attempting to help kids at a pivotal point in their lives by teaching them skills that will help make them employable, and an organization in Poto, Oklahoma, named Women's Crisis Services of LaFleur County that provides housing, counseling, and many other services for victims of domestic violence.
4 nonprofit organizations that are doing a lot of work with small staffs of paid and volunteer workers, each with a need and each deserving of Mueller's gift. But there's only one building, and it takes a great deal of soul-searching to decide which one gets that building.
But finally, that decision was made, and as we sat there talking to Mueller's Mike Fry, an army of workers was busy building that structure, a 4,000-square-foot building that will be constructed in just 3 days, and that will do much more than provide shelter from the wind and rain. It's being built for the express purpose of changing lives.
These are the people in the pit. They're doing work that nobody else will do. They're helping people that nobody else will help.
That's what this is all about, isn't it?
Yep.
That's what Mueller's all about. And these guys back here that are putting their hearts and souls into every screw and every bolt.
Oh, yeah.
Every panel that's going up.
But it changes these guys' lives, too, because they're doing something for somebody else. Working together, enjoying the day, but at the end of the day, they know in their heart of hearts that they're actually making a difference.
When we come back, we'll tell you which of the 4 nonprofit agencies was chosen to receive the gift from Mueller and why. Stay with us for more of this special edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob, Mueller's Helping Hand. Welcome back to Mueller's Helping Hand, a special edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob.
In case you're just now joining us, our sponsor, Mueller's Metal Roofs and Buildings, has been giving a brand new building, up to 4,000 square feet, to a deserving nonprofit agency for more than 15 years.
This year, almost 250 agencies applied for this gift. And after visiting a finalist list of 4 nonprofits, one rose to the top and was chosen to receive this building.
After all the due diligence that's necessary for something like this, a group of volunteers from Mueller gathers on the construction site in the town where that nonprofit agency is located and builds their new headquarters or clinic or fire station or food bank or, well, you get the idea. And they build this huge building in just 3 days.
And now we're at that point where we can tell you which agency was chosen to receive a new Mueller 4,000 square foot building. And that agency is, drum roll please,
Women's Crisis Services of LaFleur County.
Now, at this point, we need to get serious because this is a very serious subject. The nonprofit organization that was chosen to receive Mueller's gift of a new building handles one of the most tragic and complicated problems in our society, domestic abuse.
Normally, you tune into this program to get some good vibes, to hear about people who are doing positive things and making the world a better place. And I promise you'll hear about that. But to get there, we need to discuss something that makes folks uncomfortable.
So we're going to ask for your indulgence this week while we delve into this subject to give you a better understanding of why Women's Crisis Services of LaFleur County, Oklahoma, was awarded this building. We start with a conversation with their executive director, Bethany Black.
I grew up in Southeast Oklahoma till I was about 10, and then we moved to Stillwater so my dad could go to Oklahoma State University. I moved back to the Poto area in 2017.
Tell us about this place and what this is for.
Our legal name is the Women's Crisis Services of LaFleur County. We're kind of branded as LaFleur County Crisis Services because we want to make sure that we are not gendered in our service provision. So we provide victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking advocacy services. And those services look like shelter. They are therapy services. They are crisis advocacy, which crisis advocacy means when you're in the moment. Something has happened, law enforcement has come out, and you need someone right then. We provide those services to victims in that moment. We also provide sexual assault exams because if you think about it, sexual assault is one of the most traumatic experiences someone can go through simply because you can't ever escape your own body and your trauma is your own body. So we provide a exam room that's in a house that looks very friendly and it just looks like you're going to have a well check. But we do all the evidence collection, everything right there, so that way our victims are feeling the most homey that they can in the moment. But then we also provide court advocacy if a victim needs a protective order, if they need a divorce, and they don't have any support, we will go with them and be that support. Our job is to make sure victims have an avenue to leave when they're ready.
But wait a minute, we're in Poto, Oklahoma, LaFleur County, in a rural area. Do you really have that much need for all of this?
Absolutely. We have a ton of needs. Oklahoma, if you don't know, is actually #1 in the country for domestic violence. We have more cases of domestic violence than any other state. And then LaFleur County specifically fluctuates between 3rd and 5th in the state. When we are outranked, that means we are being outranked by Tulsa County and Oklahoma County. Just in my time here, I have had 8 domestic violence deaths that I've been part of.
Is there a reason?
There's no hard and fast reason. I can tell you our belief is that rural culture is very silent. We don't talk about things in rural culture. A man's castle is a man's castle, and what happens in a man's castle stays in a man's castle. And secrecy breeds violence. There's a lot of secrecy within our community, and that's our biggest thing is we want to break the silence. We want to make it okay to talk about.
Are you seeing a difference, a change?
As a resource center, as a shelter, we were very closed off. We didn't want people to know where we were. But now we are getting more in the community and we're becoming known, because what we were seeing was that our perpetrators, so our abusers, knew where we were, but our victims didn't. We have seen an increase in services, but an increase in services means I'm doing my job because people have the freedom and they have the ability to come find us. On average, it takes a person in domestic violence 7 to 12 times leaving before they stay gone.
7 to 12? So you're saying they get abused in whatever way that is, 7 to 12 times
And
before
leave.
they finally leave.
No, that's how many times they leave. These victims oftentimes just don't see a way out. Sometimes they grew up in domestic violence, so they were taught that this is how husbands love wives. They were taught this is how dads love children. So if chaos is your normal, peace feels wrong. So you stay in the chaos because that's your peace. We are teaching girls that this is how your husband should love you. We're teaching boys this is how you should love your wife. And at the end of the day, it's just a cycle. It's a continuous cycle that is absolutely breakable, but somebody has to be the first chip in the chain to break it.
I almost hate to ask you to do this, but I think it's necessary. Tell us some of the horrible things that you have seen.
I had a victim one time who actually came into shelter. She was amazing. We had got her a job. She was doing really great. He had come back. He had found her, apologized, did the whole kit and caboodle. You know, I love you so much. I promise I'll change. Within 8 weeks of being out of shelter, she had to be life flighted because he had strangled her to the point that she had passed out. When I was asked if I knew who she was, I couldn't identify her because I didn't recognize her because her face was so swollen where he had beat her. He had kept her prisoner for 3 or 4 days in the house. She wasn't allowed to leave, so her neighbor went and knocked on the door and he forgot to lock it, and her neighbor found her and called the cops. But a lot of times domestic violence is much more subtle. It's not bruises on the face. It's not strangulation. It's you're not allowed to see your mom anymore because she says mean things about me. It's, I really don't want you having a job because you might come in contact with other men and you might cheat on me. So domestic violence is, it's these horrible, awful things where you get beat up, but a lot of times it's much more subtle.
Is this just something in their DNA?
I've worked with victims whose abuser was a drug dealer who was working the street corner all the way up to one of the most respected men in our community. These people are doctors, these people are lawyers, these people are deacons in their churches, these people are drug dealers, these people are homeless people. There is no one set of people who are domestic violence abusers. It's across all creeds, colors, and nationality. The Women's Crisis Services is important to this community because it provides a safe, stable location for our women, children, and families to heal from their trauma. It provides a location that they can come. We provide that safety net for them to have a place to get back on their feet.
Tell us about receiving this new building, what it's going to mean.
Receiving this new building is going to be life-changing, not only for us as employees, but for our community. This new building is going to provide a space where we can make the shelter more secure. Lives are going to be saved because now we have places to put them, and I don't have to bury another victim because I have more room to make sure they're safe.
It's that important.
It's that important. It's life or death, literally. There are people in this community who without this building would not be able to continue living. They would not be able to continue thriving and surviving. But because we have this building, they're able to have the services to make sure they're here tomorrow.
When we come back, we'll hear more about how this organization works with area law enforcement to solve this problem. And we will hear from one victim of domestic violence who says, well, she would not be here if not for the help she's received from the organization that's getting this Mueller gift.
Stay tuned for more of this special edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob, Mueller's Helping Hand.
And welcome back to this special edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob, Mueller's Helping Hand. Now, every year our sponsor, Mueller's Metal Roofs and Buildings, picks a nonprofit agency and gives them a building. That's right, they give them a building. It's part of their Helping Hand program. And this year they are giving away building number 15 to an agency in Poto, Oklahoma called Women's Crisis Services of LaFleur County.
So far, we've heard from Mike Fry at Mueller, who told us the backstory for Helping Hand and why his company does this. And we heard from Bethany Black, the executive director of the nonprofit that is receiving this year's gift. Now let's hear from some folks who were involved with both Mueller and Women's Services, including a woman named Cindy, who was a victim of domestic abuse.
I was abused. I have been abused most of my life. I thought that was love. No, that's not love, that's abuse.
Cindy, we're not using her last name here, now knows the difference between what she thought was love and abuse. But there was a time when men used and abused her in any way they wanted because she was too afraid to do anything about it. She says she couldn't even trust the police because most of them were men too, and she feared they would take her abuser's side.
He abused me physically and mentally, saying that I wasn't worth it, that I would die. His famous words was, "I love you to death." Well, that's, I think, what he was trying to do, was kill me. And he put me in the hospital really bad.
Was he one of these guys that would commit the act and then apologize later?
Oh, yes. I'll never do it again. We'll go to counseling. I love you so much. I would get flowers, jewelry, makeup, nail polish, and then slowly the honeymoon was over. Our love was starting to get a storm again. And it would just go over and over. And finally, when I started seeing that, okay, he's done hitting me, or I'm done fighting back with this, and I've got bruises, I wouldn't call the cops. I didn't want him to go to jail.
Bethany Black, the executive director of the Women's Crisis Services in Poto, Oklahoma, says not reporting abuse to law enforcement is common. She says even people who worked at her agency used to keep an arm's length between themselves and police.
There was a time in the history of the Women's Crisis Center where our relationship with law enforcement was very adversarial. And now we're so integrated with each other that I walk in the front door of the police station and they just push the button to let me go in the back, because they know I'm there to see either the chief or the assistant chief or talk to one of the detectives, because they know me.
There wasn't a lot of trust between organizations like this and law enforcement.
There wasn't. You could see they weren't comfortable with us. We weren't comfortable with them. There was a mistrust there.
Greg Russell, Poto's assistant chief of police, and now also the chairman of the board of Women's Crisis Services, acknowledges that, well, things haven't always been good between law enforcement and agencies that work with domestic abuse victims.
Say that you've been a victim, and despite my best efforts, I'm standing there and I've got a gun and 20 some odd pounds of gear around my waist with my shaved head, and as nice as I'm trying to be, are you more likely to listen to me, or are you more likely to listen to one of these call-out advocates that show up that have been specifically trained in this, that it's a more friendly face? I would say over the last 10 years, our department and the crisis services have become partners. They're handling one side of it, we're handling the other, and we're doing it shoulder to shoulder, just so we can try to have better outcomes for these folks that have been through these horrible experiences. They've got call-out advocates that actually come to the scene. They come there to tend to the victim while we're tending to the criminal portion of it. But they're handling one side of it, we're handling the other, and we're doing it shoulder to shoulder.
The result of that partnership between police and crisis services is a monumental change for victims of domestic violence. In Poto, Oklahoma, victims have started to feel more comfortable about reporting their abuse. And the success felt by removing people from domestic violence and helping them to start over again has made Cindy a kind of hero to the community, an example of what can happen when everyone pulls together.
She is a shining example of the reason why we should all keep persevering at what we're doing, no matter how many roadblocks we run into, no matter how many times we fail or things don't go how we want to. If you're able to change one person's life, and you hope that you can change many more than that, but I mean, again, one positive outcome that wouldn't have been if organizations like WCS weren't around, if police officers weren't doing their jobs properly, then she probably never would have had a chance. Stuff like that should serve as fuel on the bad days, and when we're disappointed, you gotta cling to your wins, And I view someone like her as a win.
In Poto, Oklahoma, a group of volunteer workers from Mueller, Inc. is erecting a building for the Women's Crisis Services of LeFlore County. It's a hot and dusty job site. The days are long, but not a single one of these workers wishes they were anywhere else because they know they're doing a lot more than building a building. They know they are changing lives.
It makes us feel great. We get more out of it than the charity does. It builds teamwork and it builds community within the company, and it keeps us connected. Even since I'm retired, I still keep in contact with a lot of these guys because Mueller's a big family, and it always has been.
Yes, we're a business. We're here to make money, but we're also here to change communities, and we've been able to do that through Helping Hands. And it's a big part of who we are now. I just hope we get to continue it for years to come.
What you're doing today is not only having an impact on the people here, but it's having an impact on the people who will come. And without you, we may not be able to help the victims that are to come in the future because we wouldn't have the space. But now we have the space to make sure, because of Mueller and because of these guys, lives are going to be transformed, lives are going to be saved.
What does this organization mean to you?
Life. It's giving me life. It's giving me hope, a lot of hope, that I can live on. I will live on. It's giving me security. It's helped me in every aspect of my life, every aspect of my life. They've given me reason to wake up in the morning and try something new. I'm scared to death, but try something new. I love this organization. They've helped women. I've seen them help women. They've helped me. I'll give back to this organization for the rest of my life for what they've done to me to give me my life.
One of the things you can't see on radio is we spend a lot of time with Cindy, and Cindy has a scrapbook. Now, this scrapbook isn't a happy scrapbook. This is a scrapbook of all of those moments where Cindy's ex-husband beat her, and she keeps those pictures as a reminder of how far she's come with the help of Women's Crisis Services.
And I wouldn't say that it's an unhappy moment either, because we can sit there and see what Cindy has now become with the help that she's gotten. And, this is a problem that exists not in Oklahoma, not just in the United States of America, but all over the world at all different socioeconomic levels and all kinds of situations. We can only hope that in this instance, things are going to get better.
Now, when we come back, an emotional moment as the building is completed and the keys are turned over to the new owners.
Okay, Bethany, this is the time it's arrived.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Here it is, Bethany.
Oh my God.
What do you think, Bethany?
Guys, it's real.
This is real. What is this going to do to Poto, Oklahoma, to the women, children, and men?
It is literally going to save lives.
People love a dream and they love an idea.
Guys, thank y'all so much for showing up. This is our 15th year doing this.
It is well before sunrise in Poto, Oklahoma. Gathered on a flat concrete slab, these 47 men from Mueller Metal Buildings are about to fulfill a promise to the people of this small community.
Anything over 6 foot, you have to wear a harness.
They plan to construct a 4,000 square foot building in only 3 days. It's something called Helping Hand, an annual mission of sorts that Mueller has taken on for, last count, 15 years.
Had a really good relationship with a guy named Bob Phillips. Bob calls me at 10:30 one night and says, I've got an idea. He said, Mike, I think we need to give a building away.
That first building deep in the East Texas woods started a tradition of giving that has become part of the Mueller company culture.
We've done food pantries, we've done medical clinics, fire stations, we've done just a variety of things. And what we have found is that these organizations, all of them need help.
Each year, Mueller posts an application on their company website, and any nonprofit agency from Tennessee to Texas, well, all over really, is urged to apply.
Hundreds of requests are then narrowed down to the list of finalists. This year, there were 4. In Sudan, Texas, the Mueller team selected as a finalist Shelby's Bridge.
Then in Brookshire, Texas, a group called Eyes on Me.
And in Damascus, Arkansas, the station at Damascus also earned a spot on that coveted list.
But after meeting the people at the Women's Crisis Services in Poto, Oklahoma, and hearing their stories, we knew we had to know more.
Poto is a community of roughly 10,000 right in the middle of the Ouachita Mountain Range. So we are literally right in the middle of some of the most beautiful country in the state of Oklahoma. And sometimes beauty holds dark secrets. What do you do when you don't have resources? What do you do when you don't have a place like this to go? Our legal name is the Women's Crisis Services of LaFleur County. It provides a safe, stable location for our women, children, and families to heal from their trauma. We provide that safety net for them to have a place to get back on their feet.
When we come, we bring the building in on Monday morning at 7:30. Some of the guys on this build, this is their first build. They got soft hearts.
3 goes in that corner.
They may come across as big and tough, but they are soft, sensitive, and caring people. And that's part of the reason we're still doing this many years. I sent an email out before, telling everybody what to do, what to expect, and I said, if this is your first time, there'll be a lot of laughing, there'll be a little cussing, but this will be something that will change your life.
The Mueller men have come to know that all too well.
Just down the street from the construction site, a lone woman sits and watches a dream take shape.
We know her as Cindy, and she credits her survival to Bethany and the others at the WCS.
Here I am before the abuse. Okay, here's the first one. And then here's some more. I was abused. I thought that was love. No, that's not love, that's abuse. This is what after I've gotten out of the hospital. I'm alive. I'm a survivor.
This fast pace on day 1 of the construction couldn't come soon enough.
The need is great for so many victims, and the sun sets after an incredible day of stubborn dedication from the Mueller crew.
This is day 2 of what they started early this morning, about 7 o'clock. Sun's not even up yet.
It's hot and it's dirty and everything is dusty. Anything worthwhile is hard. If it was easy, everybody'd do it. But these guys, they sweat, they ache, but you couldn't pull one of them off of there.
I pulled up today and there's almost a whole building.
Assistant Police Chief Greg Russell is president of the Board of Directors for the Women's Crisis Center.
He works hand in hand to save those affected by family violence.
You'll find it anywhere you go, any part of the community, whether it's the nicest house in town, whether it's the smallest house in town, whether you go across the country, you're going to encounter domestic violence.
This is day 3.
It's a lot of guys coming together and a lot of guys just doing their part, knowing what to do, and we work together like a machine.
This is my 15th helping hand.
It's remarkable. I mean, you're talking about an entire steel building that you're going to erect, insulate, sheet, hang the doors, finish the building in 3 days.
I do it to give back to the community.
Lots of emotions tied up with the folks that we're helping because there are desperately hurting people out in the world. And we are so fortunate that we're in position to help some of them.
Every year we get a chance to change somebody's life.
Ahead of schedule on day 3, and the Mueller men save the honors of driving that last screw into the new building for one special person.
Bethany Black, who once taught high school ag mechanics, knows what goes into an effort like this. Back on the ground, she sees for the first time the culmination of so many prayers.
To see it with walls, it's huge.
Yeah.
Bethany's emotions take her back to a painful memory of losing her own grandmother to the effects of domestic violence.
You know, I think back that maybe if in the 70s and 80s this was a thing, I would still have my grandma. So I want to make sure some other little girl gets to have her grandma.
There are 3 things that I'm most proud about Mueller's helping hand. This group of guys, we call them the Mueller men, and they represent everything that's right about our country and everything that's right about our society, because these are the guys that will stand up for what's right, and they'll stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves.
Thursday morning, we call it the passing of the keys. Our president, Matt Ackley, will say a few words, but then officially hand the keys to the building.
The building itself is a building, but what happens inside of that building is truly humbling. And so, on behalf of Mueller and Cornerstone Building Brands, it is my honor and my privilege to present you with the keys to your new building, and thank you for all of your work.
What would you tell the Mueller men right now?
I would tell them that they are the reason that I'm going to be able to do the work that we've been trying to do for years.
We made a difference.
A lot of gratitude, a lot of joy, a lot of tears for me, you know, on the ride home. Just so grateful to be a part of it.
You guys will never know the women who come through here. You'll probably never even hear the stories that we do. But at the end of the day, you have started the process of restoring hope to families and to a community. So Mueller men, thank you so much for giving us the power to make our future possible, and thank you for restoring our hope.
And once again, the folks at Mueller have changed some lives by giving away one of their buildings.
But as Matt Ackley with Cornerstone and Mueller pointed out, it's just that. It's a building, but what goes on inside that building will change many people's lives.
And there are lots of organizations, Kelly, across the United States that are aimed at providing these kinds of services, and they all need help, each and every one of them. And if you're listening to this and you feel like you can help them or the people there in Poto, Oklahoma at the Women's Crisis Services Center of LaFleur County, please reach out to one of these organizations.
Once again, thanks for joining us for this special edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob, Mueller's Helping Hand.